Is that like
She's a cat food border collie,
okay. Yeah, little border.
but also I've been told that she's the Australian Shepherd
Oh, yeah.
cat doula, so.
Really? Do you stare at it?
We got her 9 weeks old,
Oh,
but I don't think she's ever seen children before. When I let her out of the vehicle, she took off.
Really?
She was scared. She was raised in a farm.
Oh, okay.
Literally, yeah.
She was at rock field, rock chipped our street today. Rock field.
My kid won't be here.
One car kind of walked
He doesn't tell
back
us.
and doors because
That's what, somebody's
because
coming.
he went wrong. Come back later and do that match. What a mess.
They should have just hauled it out. It's probably been there 2 weeks.
Car like years.
Well, I think it's probably close enough.
Was it not?
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. First approval of the minutes. Do you have a chance to review the minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Reese?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Yes. Gary Oster.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to come visit. I do have some few things here. That's all I do want to just spread those around, what have you. I'm with Western Frontier Insurance Agency down the street, and we represent Continental Western Insurance. We also represent One Beacon First Fire program. Both have outstanding programs for fire departments and ambulances. Right now, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the city of Washburn also has, the fire department, I should say, is insured through North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund.
I believe so, yes.
I know that the ambulance is. I am the current agent of record for the ambulance service. Before I get into any specifics or whatever, and again, I don't want to take a lot of time. I know there's other more important things to go through. Besides that, the faster I go, the quicker I have to go home and make supper, so we'll just talk slow and relaxed.
Fast you talk through the week.
Well, see, there you go, okay. Conflict of interest, so to speak. As far as fire departments in North Dakota, Continental Western has been around for many years. They currently, at the end of 2016, they currently wrote 58 plus fire departments across the state of North Dakota, and at least 8 ambulance services. Personally, I write 4, and our office writes another 9. Most of it is, of course, down in the southwest corner of the state where our home office is in Pullman, where they're from. Some of them also have Provident, which I passed out some packets there. Provident is another carrier that writes accident and health policies for fire departments and ambulance services, as well as an accidental death and dismemberment policy. Not all departments have all the products. Some have just the Provident policies. Others have a combination of all. As far as Madurf is concerned, again, good solid company, been around for many years. They do a great job since they came into being. The only concern I have with them is that, having worked with Continental Western and now the new One Beacon program that just came into the state in 2017, extremely broader coverages. And by that I'm saying the liability is much broader. The way they go about doing their business, I guess, as far as providing insurance, provides a much more, again, the word is broader coverage. For instance, the Continental, both the fire pack from One Beacon and the fire pack from Continental Western provide a 3-year rate guarantee. So unless you have a tremendous large amount of losses, In 1 year's time, you're not going to see any rate increase. If you add a truck, of course, your premium is going to go up, or if you add more equipment, that gets factored into the premium, but the actual base rate is guaranteed for 3 years. The NERF does not have such a thing. And again, I'm going to try and make it so I'm not coming down on the NERF at all. The NERF does provide general liability coverage for the fire departments and also for the ambulance services, autos, and in the marine. The property, any property that's owned, I think, has gone through the North Dakota Fire and Tornado Fund as far as buildings and that type of thing. So, and I think that's how it's set up right now.
Yes.
Part of the reason for wanting to address the commission, and thank you again for this opportunity, is to really find out who owns what and whatever, so we can go forward with that. As far as breaking out the fire department from the city, so I believe the city and the fire department may be separate policies, but again, both under North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund. There's no problem doing that at all. We've done that in Bowman, Scranton, Heading, Burlington. I mean, it doesn't make a difference who owns things. So, with that said, a couple of major differences. Again, going back, both of the programs provide 3-year rate guarantees. Both provide a single deductible if there's multiple policies involved, and you have not only in the marine schedule some of the reportable equipment that's damaged, but also the fire truck at the same loss, the same fire call. It's just one deductible, one for the truck and one for the equipment and that type of thing. All property, and by property I'm talking about buildings and non-portable equipment, your business, personal property, their computers, their in-house chairs and that type of thing, whatever. All that is on a replacement cost basis. The special causes the loss. Not sure if you understand what the special causes the loss are. The standard insurance industry provides a basic, broad, and special. Broad and the basic and the broad are on a named perils basis, whereas or I should say named cause of loss. So in other words, they're going to say you have fire, you have lightning, you have vehicle damage. A special cause of loss is everything's covered unless it's excluded. So a lot broader approach to providing coverage. It also includes employee dishonesty coverage, equipment breakdown, ordinance or law, water and sewer coverage is available, business property on and off the premises. In the marine, where you start looking at your turnout gear, your helmets, your boots, your jaws of life, anything that's portable and not physically attached to the trucks or other firefighting machines. Both of the programs away from the NERF provide this on a blanket. I know from dealing with some fire departments insured through the NERF, every single item is, if you want it covered, it has to be on your inventory, it has to be a value for it, and that's period, that's how it works. I, as an agent, like that from my clients, from the fire departments that I service and take care of, because that gives me that ability to visit further about the total values involved, but it's not a requirement. Neither company's program requires that, but again, it's on a blanket basis. If you only report $200,000, this is just an example, if you only report $200,000, and that's what your 3-year rate guarantee, your policy is issued on, but down the line within those first 3 years, and again, I should clarify, that's an annual policy, but the rate is guaranteed for 3 years. And all of a sudden you have a loss, and it's a total loss. The tornado comes in and wipes out everything. You start from scratch, and now you start replacing all your portable equipment, and you're at $350,000, but you only pay a premium of $2,000. Both companies will pay the full $350,000 because it's guaranteed replacement cost. Period. No questions asked. When they renew the policy, they'll look at, well, remember you had $350,000, so now at that point is when they would increase that.
Okay.
Increase that. So. Another situation is commandeered equipment. Out here in the rural areas, there may be the occasion for Farmer John to get his John Deere tractor involved, clearing away brush for the fire department, that type of thing. The NERF doesn't consider that covered under their policies. Both both the other programs say it's primary liability, as long as there's an emergency situation, as long as we're telling them, we're being the fire chief, whoever's on the on-site commander, as long as they're directing traffic and having that farmer go down to their, use his tractor or other equipment, and let's say he runs into somebody or runs over somebody, unfortunately, the fire department picks up that liability. He was doing our beck and call. Or similar, his equipment gets damaged because of the fire that he got involved in, and it burns up. We've got primary coverage on that as well. So a lot of nice coverages, broad coverages that provide better coverage for the fire departments. And then I use tractors as an example, but it could be a boat, it could be a 4x4, it could be even an auto for that matter. If the occasion comes in for an auto to be commandeered, we have primary coverage for that too, and the physical damage. And also liability in case that owner gets sued. Because he was out operating his tractor and hurt somebody, he gets sued too. We pick up the defense under the fire department because at our beck and call in our service, so we would pick that up. NERF doesn't do that, so a couple things there. One thing that NERF does do is they will pay for up to $5,000 for a vehicle, a volunteer's vehicle, who is on the way to an emergency situation, responding to a call. Instead of coming down to the fire department trying to catch the truck, he's just going to head right on out, gets into an accident. NERF will actually pay up to $5,000 for the damage to his vehicle. They say nothing about the liability side. With the two other programs, they have one of the programs will pick it up, either the deductible or the full cost of the repairs. If they don't have collision coverage on their vehicle, we'll pay for the repairs while they're responding to an emergency situation. And right there, I'm just going to try and confuse you a little bit. The old CG policy, again, that's the fire pack. And then you have the new One Beacon First Fire. First Fire says it doesn't have to be an emergency situation. In other words, if it's required by the chief that all the volunteers come into the station on Thursday nights, take inventory, wash the trucks, clean the equipment, and they're coming to that job, so to speak, at the request of the fire chief, and they have an accident, the one policy will pick it up even at that point. Okay. Continental says now it's got to be an emergency before we're going to go that route. So, a couple of nice little differences for them.
That's the Provident, you said we picked that up?
No, Provident is totally different from those.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It'd be First Fire.
Okay.
Is the name of the program.
First Fire, okay.
I wish they would have gotten their names a little different, like chocolate cereal or something, that much easier. But both policies or both company programs also provide for the, of course, public liability and professional liability, as well as the management. They're required to make a payment for the Provident policy, and they don't. And Johnny gets hurt, and he doesn't have his policy where he got the errors and omissions for some kind of wrongful act or something. You're going to pay it. You may be able to get that with NERF. That hasn't gotten into that one yet. Special events. If you're lighting off fireworks for the local civic club or something like that on 4th of July. You're having a rodeo, you're doing stuff like that, and you're sponsoring those things. A lot of these special events are at no charge. You have full liability coverage for that at no charge. Again, a major distinction between the two fire programs is Continental Western may charge you for some things like a haunted house, and it may require some additional information on an application or a short app. First Fire says just tell us when the date is, it's covered. So a lot broader coverage with the one. Good Samaritan liability, employee benefits liability coverage, employment practices liability. Someone doesn't like that you fired them or something. You're a volunteer. They don't like that they're no longer allowed to come back, and for whatever reason bring action against you. You've got coverage for that under both of the fire programs. With the autos, the fire trucks, we all know how expensive those can be, especially when you get them brand spanking new coming out of the factory. Even the used ones are real expensive to get a hold of. There's no depreciation on any repairs to either of those programs. programs is you establish a value as the fire department, and let's say it's $150 for that. And we put that down. That's what they're gonna rate it on and charge a premium for, and that's the maximum that we would have is that value. So, regular vehicles like the commander's pickup or something like that, that's just like your car and my car. It's on an actual cash value basis. There is no replacement cost or anything like that, or designated value, but again, still no depreciation. As far as autos, again, commandeered autos, they have to take Joe's pickup and use it for whatever reason. It's unlimited physical damage. There is no cap on it. If it's $1 million, so be it. That's what it's going to be. And again, primary liability and no deductibles for that. One nice thing also is, in fact, I'm in the middle of going through two of my departments that this, I'll tell you a little story here if I can just take a few more minutes there. But under both of those programs, freezing of your pumps on your fire trucks is covered. The dirt will not cover that. You know, in the middle of the winter, one of them freezes up and you can't use that truck anymore. Now it's down because the pump is shot. There's even rental coverage available if you have an issue with one of your trucks and it can't be used. You can actually go and rent another fire truck, whether from another department or there's places in most part of the state in South Dakota like those. Again, the main thing is between those two programs is the fact that First Fire, the newest program through One Beacon, does not require it to be an emergency situation. Any activity, anything that goes on that the fire chief or the board says do, we have coverage for. So I have two fire departments right now. They were on site for about 4 days at that Minot Recycling Center fire up there recently. Earlier this spring, I was out in DC packing my daughter up, so I missed the whole smoking and everything like that I saw on TV. In any event, my two departments were up on site and couldn't leave. They were the main pumper units that were pouring water on that thing. So they had trucks from a tanker truck from Kenmare and other assorted smaller towns bringing hauling in water. And nothing against any of those departments. That was a great thing that they were able to help out. But there was sand and grit at the bottom of those tanks. And as it was going through my two departments, different pumper units, it's scored, if you would, the valves. So the valves now leak. On some of them, they're down for the time being, which they weren't. They went and fixed them right away, and we'll figure it out later. But that was covered 100% by both programs, and it was two separate programs involved. So I mean, whether or not MDRF would have covered that, I don't know. I've never had the opportunity to present a claim like that. Premium-wise, yes, with the expanded coverages, you're probably going to see that the premium is going to go up a little bit if we get to that point, and we're fortunate enough to be able to provide some quotes for the Washburn Fire Department. For example, just down the road, Wilton was with the MDRF. We have an office and an agent also in Wilton, Todd Newton. He was able to finally get them to give us an opportunity to quote it, and they actually moved their fire department insurance to Continental Western. Difference in premiums, again, much broader, much more premium than much more coverage. Not to give away numbers, but it ended up being about $800 more on an annual basis. So that much, not a whole lot. And again, much broader coverages, up to $10 million on an occurrence basis for your liability. There's no claims made type of things.
This First Fire, is this like a newer company?
This is a newer company. In years past, we worked with the managing agent was Fisher Rounds out of Rapid City, South Dakota, and we would go through them. Even though our office and our insurance agent has a direct contract with Continental Western, because they had a managing agent already set up, we would always go through them to do our fire programs and property. And they were trying to get some changes made with the Continental Western program for years. For whatever reason, there's changes coming out now. I have not seen them, I'll be honest with you. They were supposed to be done on March 1st. Looks like maybe September 1st that those were a lot of things taking place. But Continental Western and the Fisher Rounds managed and split companies. And a lot of the people that developed the program for Continental Western 20 years ago came in and went to work for One Beacon and developed their own program. One Beacon's been around. They're a national company recognized around the country for municipalities, schools, fire departments, and what have you. Both of these two fire programs were developed by ex-firefighters, by the people that had gone through all this. A lot of them are still volunteers for their local departments and that type of thing. As of January 1st, One Beacon came into the state with Fisher Rounds, so now I have to deal with a different managing agent still in the city who covers North and South Dakota. Which leads me finally, I guess, unless there's any other questions on the two fire programs, really quick and a lot of blah, 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 but specifics at any time, I'd be happy to sit down, but now's not the time to go through coverages. And if I may say so, I'm sort of a geek when it comes to that. I grew up with my dad as an insurance adjuster, so we were in insurance for 40-some years. My background is in 34 years as an insurance adjuster for Dakota Fire. In fact, I worked at the city of Washburn at one time when the city had their insurance, handled all kinds of claims for the city when I first moved in to Bismarck, originally Dickinson boy. And I did marketing, and I was also a commercial underwriter, actually putting policies like these together.
So Continental Western and First Fire are separate companies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they like to compete. Right now, there's sort of a bidding war going on between the two. Fisher Rounds has all the background information on all these departments, and now they want to write with the new company because it's broader, better, as they say.
So this is more for like fire departments and ambulances though, right?
Right. As far as the city is concerned, I've also checked with my carriers. There's not a whole lot of interest anymore out there. At one time, Dakota Fire, EMC Insurance Company was one of the big writers in the state for municipalities, and then the DERF was brought into play as a result of that. Missouri River Valley Underwriters, I believe, is what it was first termed, and then it became the DERF. So like I said, that's what's out there right now. In the state of North Dakota, I don't know how many companies have switched, or how many departments, I should say, have switched to the new program. Of my 4 that I control, I have 3 of them that are with the new program.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds like a better deal, really more coverage, so.
Yep. Much broader approach on the liability side of things.
Have you talked to the fire department at all?
I run into Clayton every once in a while. I try to attend the fire school every spring, every February up in Minot.
Yeah.
And I know Clayton personally, just insurance-wise around town,
Sure.
that type of thing. But we've never really sat down and done anything. So I figured I'd bring it up to the commission, I guess, and see if there's any direction or anything that I can take forward. One last thing, I guess, is the Provident that you have there. As you can see, the first 2 pages, one is a real brief explanation of the accident and health program. The second sheet is their accidental death and dismemberment policy. And then the third, they brought on a new thing, this sort of an EAP type of approach for fire departments, employee assistance program type of thing, grief counseling, that type of stuff. One thing nice about it is that with the Provident policy, more firefighter, you've all heard some stories out there. There's a gentleman on the eastern part of the state that came home after volunteering on scene and fighting a fire for hours on end. Came home a couple hours after he was home, he had suffered a heart attack. The work comp said, nothing to do with that, sorry. You're at home, we're not going to pay. There's no evidence to say that it was brought on by the old, they're in good shape, whatever. So they denied that. The accidental health doesn't make a difference. If you're off fighting the fire, it was a day or 2 later, whatever. You turn the claim in and you can get some benefits there. The accidental death and dismemberment, There's also identity theft coverage for your volunteers and for the spouses. A couple of new things, heaven forbid that we lose a firefighter to death type of thing, but there's now spousal education coverage and child education expenses that they're all paid for in the event of an untimely death or something. So, with that, I guess I'm just going to throw it out there. If there's any questions, I can try to answer them now. You have my card. Please feel free at any time to give me a shout or have anybody call me. Be more than happy to visit further and go a lot more in depth, I guess, with the actual coverages. I would love to be able to put a quote together for you folks, or I should say for the fire department, to see how we compare. I know the coverages will be much broader, but with that, again, sometimes comes a higher cost, and I know everybody's on a tight budget. When I ride into some of the smaller ones, departments that I do have one small one, they're out in the middle of nowhere, the oil boom left and their volunteers are gone. So they're really struggling to maintain and to keep up with things. They're using some of these programs as a recruitment tool, if you would, because now anything you're going to volunteer to do for the fire department, you got coverage. So.
Say how often do we shop this insurance? When's the last time that we looked at that from the city perspective? And or is it just the fire department that looks at this on premiums? What's the?
Well, we pay their premiums, right? Or I suppose the rural pays part of it, right?
Rural pays part of it, yes.
Yeah, see, and that's just it. You almost need to, I would say, talk to Clayton, and then, you know, the fire department kind of takes care of themselves, you know? When they usually want to change something, they usually, you know, meet with the rural and then they come and talk to us, or vice versa, you know?
Okay.
And Clayton could probably answer a lot more questions than we can on anything, you know? I mean, as far as looking into it, I think, you know, it definitely doesn't hurt to look into it, you know?
Say, Gary, has something changed with the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund? You had quite a few demerits for their program compared to yours, so did they see a budget cut in this latest biennium, or what's changed? What's changed, I guess, is just a strict comparison of what coverages they're offering. So it's just a straight, just a very basic comparison from the perspective of what the new programs have versus what they've been providing.
Right. Now, we did get a notice, and you're insured with Medicare from the city. You'll probably see a notice soon. Because of the last 2 years of losses, they really got hit bad in 15 and 16. They are going to take a 10 to 15% rate increase across the board. So there'll be some changes or higher premiums coming in too.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, they're really set up for municipalities. They do not use standard coverage forms like all the rest of the industry. They have memorandums of coverage, which they've taken pieces from, and it creates a good coverage form, but it's not a standardized form. And so I've worked in the industry as long as I have, and being a geek in coverage and that type of thing. That's one thing that stands out. It's just not a standard coverage. It's still relatable. You can still understand it. But it's just not standard.
Then we'd have to really consider if one policy under the umbrella dropped off, how that affected premiums on all others, and that's pretty. Gotcha.
And that's another thing. Thanks for bringing that up as well. Umbrellas, that's all part of part and parcel of these programs as well.
Well, as far as the rates on our other
for you, yes,
North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund.
What would that be?
Yeah. What else? Yeah. Trade off. What's a trade?
Each department, each policy, you can also get the umbrella on that. So one offers an actual umbrella, the other one looks like just going up to $10 million on the federal liability, no umbrella. So again, a little bit of difference between the two fighter programs themselves, as far as that goes too. Very, very good programs with us. So with that, go home and make supper. Sure you don't need like another 2 hours or something?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys very much, I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sharon.
Renee? And this was tabled at our last meeting, so everybody could think about this one. Have you talked to like Jim Costello about possibly parking trucks in his lot, or?
Not recently. Jim had talked to Ashley previously and said if she ever needed to occasionally, but not within.
Yeah. I guess my big, like I said, my big concern is, I think our priority is to, protect our infrastructure as much as we can. I just don't think it's a good idea to have trucks, running around there. There's quite a few spots, places around town where, we don't allow trucks. Renner Edition, up by my house, there's no trucks up there. Trying to think of where else.
Well, and I understand where you're coming from. We're willing to do whatever it takes to, to make everybody happy.
Mhm.
I don't agree with, if the sign is gonna be put up, then it should be put up at the beginning of 15th, not after Jim Costs approach.
That's a good point. So we can just be open with discussion now, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I guess the question would be, if we could get to the root of something like that, and just kind of looking at it from 10,000-foot view, is the root the fact that commercial or heavy equipment vehicles are in residential, not just this single instance? I mean, should we be looking at this big picture? Because if we're gonna put signs up in one specific area of town, I think we're doing the wrong thing if we're not considering, all of Washburn.
Right.
Because I looked at the ordinance just a little bit, and, that talks about the residential and keeping your commercial grade vehicles out of there. So if we put up a sign in one specific area, it might keep, those trucks out, but you're still gonna need your garbage truck running through and then projects going back and forth.
They'll have, the
Oh,
short
yeah,
truck
no,
is way
I think
bigger
those
than
are,
Ashley's truck.
special trips in and out, but as far as the equipment being stored in residential, is that maybe the root of this? If we're to tackle that, would that solve the traffic? Because ultimately it's the street wear and tear, it's the safety of residents, and then being fair to folks that pay the assessments.
But I paid this.
Commercial versus residential.
I own 5 of those lots.
Right.
So 5 of those lots, I pay the specials on. This short area that she was driving on. When she comes around that corner on Missouri, it's, I don't know how many feet it is to our property. And as far as storing the vehicle, she's not storing it, this is her work vehicle.
Well, just for discussion. So
Well-
residential rates for assessments, I think that's what you're talking about. How much of a difference are we looking at for the commercial versus residential? Do we need to look at that big picture for running heavy equipment in town and residential?
What do you mean rates, or, I'm not sure.
Well,
That's
special
what it is. That's
assessments, yeah.
Because they got a business though.
Well, exactly. That's why we should look at this big picture.
It's just their home.
Yeah, you had something to say, Sloan?
Yeah, I'm curious as to why you're wanting to put no trucks allowed there. That kind of befuddled me when I saw that, and I thought, well, we've got all these other kind of vehicles running around, namely the garbage truck. Schwann's man goes through there. UPS drives like a maniac. These guys are the most conscientious drivers you'll ever meet. I see them coming in, they ease around the corner, and see them going out, they ease around the corner. They're the best drivers. They're not raising heck, there's no noise. I'm live right behind them. I sit right next to those trucks. I don't have a problem, I don't even see them. There's no noise, there's no, this is their home, I don't have a problem with it. And the road itself, I mean, I'm paying 23,500 and something in specials for a road that can't handle a truck. That surprises me. I understand, you know, like, what, Main Street is supposed to be beefier for the
It
big
is, yeah.
semis hauling the big loads in and out. But these guys are running empty when they come home.
Right.
And it's just, they're just parking a truck behind their house.
Would it
You know,
be a
motorhomes,
difference if
a lot of
they had
trucks.
parked the trailer back there and she just drove a truck without the trailer?
Yeah, a lot of times it's just the truck, no trailer, so.
Yeah, I mean, I see you have 2 trailers stored there now, right?
Those are the trailers that she uses.
Yeah, they're not stored, they're used.
And they look like they were stored. Look, there was a bunch of weeds around them. I just drove by there, you know, before I came.
They keep better
Um,
care of that property than previous owners have.
well, yeah.
As a neighbor, I
yeah.
have no complaints.
Um,
But I mean, if you can do weight limits and stuff like that, what about motorhomes and things like that, you know? We get into a real tough area of controlling, you know?
Yeah, it is.
And they're going the speed limit or lower versus other people. The guys that were doing the chip sealing today were driving so darn fast, I was getting a little bit worried there for a while. They might go over the edge and end up in Willie's trees.
Well, you know, like I said, I'm more concerned about our infrastructure. You know, we just spent millions of dollars on infrastructure around town, you know, and that's my big concern.
Yeah, I'm paying
Also,
for
there's a
that.
very, very narrow street, you know. That's my big concern, and really,
The street back there has because there are no houses back there from our property to the corner up there, really to speak of, so there
Yeah.
is,
well, there's not too many.
There's hardly
There's a few,
anybody
but
back
not
there, so.
yeah. And Ashley would never, you know, pull out in front of someone.
Actually, there's only like one approach that is right across for Sam Fears' house. Anderson's are on the other side of it, so there's just me and my dog.
Well, that might, just for discussion, so that's a specific instance where the lot, you could, it's a defensible point, right? There's limited individuals there, it's a
Yeah,
different
it's
setup,
not a
but
high traffic area.
any other, how do we answer the same question for other lots in town? You
How
know,
much
if it's-
traffic do they have? How many kids do they have out there? What's the, you know, I don't see where these trucks running empty should damage that road. I mean, they go slower than everybody else. That's why I'm asking about, you know, why is it we're paying all these specials on a paved road that can't handle a truck, you know?
No, that's fair. The interpretation I guess I have is that those are specials at the residential
Yeah.
rate, that's correct?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the 117.5.6, it talks about the rural residential. And then they talk a little bit about, you know, the point is to prohibit general commercial industrial uses of the land and prohibit, which would substantially interfere with development and continuation of the single-family dwelling. So, root cause of this, do these types of vehicles belong in that residential area?
That's right.
I
yeah.
figure they
You know,
own
if-
most of that lot back there. It's a big empty lot, it's protected, it's limited traffic. I really just don't see the problem. I don't see the point of putting, or to turn it into a commercial lot, that's their home.
Well, that's not what we're saying at all,
Okay,
just,
okay, just, you know,
just
you're talking
how
about
would we
business.
answer this question if it was someone up on, you know, Fifth Avenue and they're backing in a trailer into that lot? You know, we'd have an answer
You-
over here, but then we'd handle it differently.
Well, you'd have to
for
have
that.
it situation by situation then, because this is
Well-
different back there. It's empty back there. It's quiet back there.
I
Well,
guess,
the problem with that is the next person will go, well, you let them do it.
But there is no
That's where you
more
get
potential
problem.
growth back there.
Right.
I mean, pretty much that is the edge before you get to the river.
It's locked up back there.
So it's not like Washburn can grow any further that
Yeah.
direction.
I think there's one lot for sale back there, and that's it.
But the zoning is still,
It's all commercial.
huh?
I mean, excuse me, all residential.
All residential.
Excuse me.
Jim Cost's shop is also still zoned residential.
Yeah, he had all kinds of equipment, big equipment.
He's got farm-
He doesn't anymore, does he?
No, but he did then.
He's still got equipment parked out there.
Yeah. And his motorhome's the size of, it's a big motorhome. And I mean, that's the other thing, okay, what qualifies? Motorhomes are registered in a truck chassis, aren't they?
Well, some motorhomes are extremely heavy, some aren't,
Yeah,
you know.
so,
Um, But generally, you don't see a motorhome driving in and out of there several times, 4 times a week either, so.
they're just part of the neighborhood, it's, there's so few people back there, it's just not a problem. You say they're the more conscientious drivers than.
That's just her work vehicle.
I think
I have
if
another question, is like if down the road, if I can get my ship to come in someday and I can do some work on my house, I wanna have a cement truck come in. What happens then if it says no trucks, or I want wagon wheel to bring me in a house?
Well,
You know, I mean, what happens then?
the thing is, you know, for construction, I mean, obviously, you know, it has to come in. You know, it's like the garbage truck.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like the garbage truck on the streets, but whatever, what is our option?
Yeah, it's
You know,
not,
I mean,
we ain't gonna pick up our tanks and bring
You
them
know,
over to
that's-
you.
and sometimes, you know, I mean, the UPS guy comes through. I mean, that's, what's the option? You
Yeah.
know? I guess, you know, I just like to, you know, try and protect whatever we can. Maybe it's something we need to, you know, look at as a citywide thing where, you know, reevaluate our ordinance and, you know, maybe have something, I don't know, something.
I think usually generally you wanna target, you know, individual cases, but on this one, it should be a group therapy thing, and we could handle it consistently for the whole town. Cause it would be wrong if we put up no trucks in that area, cause that's targeting one specific individual. But then on the same side of this, if this was in any other part of town, how would you be able to justify grain trucks, semis in those areas too? So we've gotta have an answer for those folks as well. So,
And you
big
know-
picture, it needs to be looked at. Do those heavy grade vehicles belong in residential?
You know,
Ordinance as it stands says no.
I'm sure because we have a lot of farmers that have moved into town and they have to farm out in the country, I'm sure there's been a truck or two that's come into town on roads that maybe already been marked, I don't know. But back there, it's landlocked, they have plenty of space to park the trucks, it's not an issue. I just don't, you know, I just don't think it's a problem.
Wouldn't
The
it?
trucks aren't parked on the streets, I mean,
Yeah,
they're not in ice or, you know, back out of the way. Like I said, you know, I'd be more than happy to put an approach in back there if that would help. You know, or, you know, if the city felt that it was more appropriate to, on the lots that are on the backside, Sasha does not drive down 15, you know, the one that goes in front of her house, she goes around the back on Missouri.
Okay, 15th is the
15th
one
is
that,
Missouri.
15th comes straight down and then it turns into
It's-
First.
Or first,
Yeah.
maybe.
Right, and then
Okay.
15th actually continues
It's
to
15th in
your
Missouri.
place and then it
And then
turns
it
into
turns to
Missouri.
Missouri, right, so, yeah.
14th is the other street, in front of her house there, yeah.
First,
First Street,
It's first?
yes,
First
Okay.
Avenue, right,
yeah. So she's never on
That's back
First
there.
Avenue,
right.
you know, but, you know, if those back 3 lots were zoned differently to adjust the specials accordingly.
Well, the specials are already done, you know, and they're not gonna change. You know, they've already been
Assessed.
so, yeah, those stay the way it is. I guess, maybe this is something we need to look at as a bigger picture. For now, I would say probably, leave the trucks off. We'll keep watching and see if there's any damage from turning off of the road, because, if there is, somebody has to pay for that, you know what I mean? You understand that, right? So,
Just to go back, the primary, when this was brought to the city, what was the primary concern? Was it wear and tear on the streets, or just that the road was so
well,
narrow?
I think originally, didn't she head out on 14th once?
No.
Somebody did with a semi. And then, that was a while, remember that? Somebody,
A resident had,
somebody called and said there was a semi driving around or whatever.
yeah, on 14th.
Anyway, and then, I guess I was concerned, I brought this up, I was concerned about, semis running around back there because first of all, it is a very narrow road.
Yeah.
And, we need to try and save infrastructure as much as we can. I mean, we've spent millions of dollars, the citizens have spent millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the amount of residents and the way those corners are on 14th, Ashley will never take 14th. So I'm not sure whose semi was back there, but
Yeah, I
it
don't
wasn't
know.
hers.
Yeah, I'm not saying it
You know,
was, I don't know whose it
She
was.
takes the least,
Right, I'm not saying it was, I just.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, she drives past 2 houses.
Right,
Yeah.
no, I understand which way.
And, yeah.
And I mean, they creep by. It's just so nice and slow.
Well, sure, yeah, and I'm sure she's very
Yeah,
careful.
so-
Yeah, so that's what, maybe the big ticket items is safety of residents, that's a concern. Residential versus commercial, special assessments, that's a topic, and then the street wear and tear, that's another point of consideration with that.
I'm surprised about the street wear and tear part because I figured it should
Well,
have been
there are truck
durable
routes,
enough,
truck routes in town. I know
Yeah,
they
I
do
realize
that on
that.
purpose, they follow specs for that.
Yeah.
And then, the rest of the streets are just the basic.
But she's not any heavier per
Yeah, you did a
4 inch.
really great job of having the numbers on
Yeah.
square, pounds per square inch on tire, for those trucks.
It may not be heavier per square inch, but you have a lot more tire down, so you have a lot more weight down,
But it's the
so.
same principle as laying
But there's
down
less
and
traffic.
across the ice versus walking across
Kind
the ice.
of.
It's the same.
But, the thing is, you don't care if there's trucks there, but
No.
in another part of town, somebody probably would really care. And that's where you run into problems is, so I think we need to look at this more. What do you guys think? I mean, for now, just leave the signs off and we'll look at it. And we'll definitely know when we come up with anything and, we won't just do it without telling you anything.
Okay.
If that's, will work for you for now. But I think it's something we really need to look at. So, everybody good with that? Because one area affects the whole town,
Yeah.
because, like I said, if one person does it, then the next person is gonna do it, and their neighbor probably won't like it, so, and actually, we've been sending out cleanup letters trying to clean up a lot of these places, which I'm not saying yours is messy, it's just, we want people to get their lots looking nice, and then some people would be offended by having, a truck sitting in their backyard, in their neighbor's backyard. And I'm not saying your area, I'm saying maybe somewhere else, so. So we'll look this over, and I'm assuming the city has your contact information number and stuff. That good for everybody?
No.
Okay, thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bob? Thanks, Lynn. have that one.
Huh?
We have that one.
You do?
Yes, that's what I gave to print out.
Oh, okay. Since I've been working with the forestry or tree board, we've been maintaining the sign site down there in East Town, and the trees around it, and every year I've taken pictures of this and brought it in and notified you that ravines are getting bigger. Now I think they're getting dangerous. I measured it actually, it's 10 feet from the culvert. Interesting thing is that culvert is full of dirt. And
Where does the culvert come from?
well, I
Is it
assume
through the middle?
it must go through to the other, up to the medium. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm kind of baffled. I haven't been there when the water's running, but I assume it's coming off the road. You know? Almost
Either that
has to
or
be.
down the ditch, I suppose.
Well, there's another one where it's coming through the ditch that runs right by the sign. That's this hole right here.
Oh, these aren't the same as this? The front and back are different?
Different angles.
Just different angle, same place?
Yeah,
Okay,
same
right,
place.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, here's the rocks
Right.
for the sign.
Yep.
This is looking down into this ravine,
Right.
which is deep.
Yeah.
And I think one year somebody put a load of rocks in one of them, but that's all washed out now.
Well,
Anyway, if you're gonna be mowing down there,
Yeah.
you know, and there's tall grass, you know,
Well,
if they ain't gonna do nothing, at least mark them.
I think there were areas, you know, a little bit further down when, even when I worked for the city, that
Yeah.
were kind of washed out, you know.
No, this is the worst.
And I had to watch out for that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this should be a state.
Well, that's my head, if somebody's got a twister around, just
Can
come
we,
look at it, it's
you know-
been stated every
I
year.
can bring a document, Steve.
Get a hold of the state, I mean, if, can send them these pictures, whatever, who would we get a hold of? I don't know if you,
You send them all document, it's not safe. You know, if somebody slides off the road in the wintertime there, it's gonna be dangerous.
yeah. But yeah, we can get a hold of the state on that.
They're gonna have to bring in some big stuff and redo the whole thing. I mean, it's-
Yeah, and probably somebody in the Bismarck office, I'm going to assume.
More than likely.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have the city crew stay away then for just mow the perimeter for the time being, stay away from that?
Yeah,
Well, we have been mowing around down there and getting in there with our weed eaters and going around these ravines, so they were kind of visible. But it's been dry, we haven't mowed down there this year.
the nice thing about the mower is it has a, you know, wing on it, so your wheels aren't right next to
Yeah.
it, but still, you have to.
You only got 10 feet between that
Yeah,
post and the,
yeah,
the
we shouldn't
ravine,
be
so
going into that close, so,
you can't get in
yeah. Can you show Adam this and make sure that he knows? Okay, and you asked about the ferry?
there. Oh, yeah, there's lots of stuff. I only have one of these. I just took a picture of this here, just so people that aren't really familiar with what's all going down in here. I wasn't until I started working on this here. There's a plaque on there. It says the Sioux, it's the last stern-wheel ferry on Missouri built by Oscar Anderson in 1951 and operated by him on the Missouri River at Washburn from 1952 to 1962. And it was restored by the Washburn Bicentennial Committee in 1976. This little plaque we got on there. I don't know if you ever see this. But
I've read it, yeah.
have you,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Years ago.
yeah. And I'm just trying to picture the history of this thing together. And I understand that they drug it up off the riverbank and set it up on the pillars and put a fence around it. And the Lions have done a tremendous amount of work down there. restored paddle wheel and built these, where the, we call them ramps. Built those, and I did a lot of painting, staining. Tom Mary put down a new deck, took care of the bottom with some kind of grant. So I really don't know, you know, how much oil you got invested in this. I got into this here, trying to make some estimates on the repairs.
Can I see these pictures while you're talking?
And here, on the repairs, the road roofing on all the roofs is just kind of bubbling up, and some places was missing. The OSB was showing, but what I saw showing was good. So I gave an estimate to tear it off, put on frost guard and tin in place of anything else. I thought that would last for a long time. And when I tore it off, oh no, boy, it was, everything was rotten. And a lot of additional framing to do. On that article there, where I started on the cabin, and
So you took a lot of the decking off too?
the sheeting, yeah.
The actual deck, or are we talking about?
We're talking the roof over the engine room. We're talking the roof over the engine room.
So there was a
What are all
quote.
these pictures then? Like,
Huh?
what are all these?
That's where it's ripped off.
Oh, that's on top of the roof?
Yeah, that's on top of the roof. That's how much I had to tear off.
Oh, it is?
And rebuilt.
I'm sorry.
And rebuilt.
It looked like the.
Yeah, no, it was, and the bottom of the wheelhouse is rotted out up where, to the top of the trim. So I had to cut that out, put a filler board in, get inside and put a backer board in. And so I had something to screw that to, and I put a new trim on it. As a result, I went over the $3,000 allocated to do some of these projects. I guess my look at the minutes in my email, I requested be excused from my contract in that respect because my opinion was unavoidable. Well, let me set these out here. Here's the numbers.
I guess just for information, you had put together a complete quote to repair it, top to
Right.
bottom, and then the commission approved the 3,000
Right.
to get the
Of
roof,
that.
the roofs going and the doors
Yeah.
secure.
Yeah.
So then what you're saying, you bid into it, and this thing is
It
much
was
worse than what.
unavoidable. Once you open the can of worms, you gotta.
So you're into it more. You got one of the roofs done over the engine room. That was.
I just got the engine room done recently.
Okay.
And,
Is the other roof open, or is it, have you not torn into it
I haven't torn into anything anymore.
yet? Okay.
And I'll
But you have one, you have that one you're working on closed up?
I have the engine room roof done completely.
Okay.
It's got tin on it now, it's sharp, and it's gonna last longer than me. You turn that thing upside down, it'll float.
How much you got into it?
I'm, let me get this together here, I'm sorry. I want to- Oh, it's this file.
What they have there?
I am 1,366 over 3,000, 4,366.42. That, I haven't returned stuff yet. That would include returning any returnable material. Okay?
Did you, like, contact the office or anything and say, hey, I'm gonna go over budget here and, you know, before?
Well, no. No, I didn't. I finished the job.
Well, no, I understand. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
No, I wasn't.
I'm just saying as-
you were complaining.
No, I'm just saying, what probably then, you know, when something like that happens, a person should probably, you know, get a hold of our buildings and grounds for Reese and say, hey, you know, this is gonna.
Well, I did talk to Reese
Yeah.
down there one day.
Yep.
And,
Oh, you did? Oh, so
and
you did
mentioned
contact
it,
the city.
but we didn't talk numbers.
Yeah,
You know,
we-
it's,
Okay, well, that was good.
Yeah, Bob made mention that it was worse than he had thought. Next step was to approach the commission,
Oh,
or the city and or the commission, so.
are all these different or what?
I'm sorting my crap out. I should have done it before. But
Well, I mean, you know, the thing is, we can't spend money and fix it wrong, you know, I mean, it has to be fixed
Yeah,
correctly.
very true.
So, you know,
And the idea, you know, the idea of going after the doors and the roof sets first made most sense. Secure those and then go after the rest.
no.
Get two of the same here. Can you get a one?
No.
I like this one.
Okay, here's two new proposals.
Oh, I got, okay, give me that one for the door. There.
Do you have another new proposal?
Yeah.
Because she only has the door one now.
Here's a new proposal.
Perfect. Okay.
Anyway, we'll go over, you can, I'm just gonna briefly go over this, you can go over it a little later. The following is breakdown of cost repair. The doors installed, metal roof over the engine room, there were tremendous cost overruns due to rot and swelled OSB sheets that need to be repaired, rotted trim boards replaced. Support for the roof and wheelhouse.
Are you reading off what we have here or
Necessary.
something?
Yep,
or-
that's right off the top of this here.
Which one is that? Oh, right
Right
there?
here, yeah.
Okay.
I just, you can read it later, but, the door estimates came out pretty good. Actually, pretty much right on, got a little extra work done. Railings on, that came in a little lower. Next page was the original roof estimate for the whole works. And then the original engine room portion, which is 31.9% of the square footage. What it should have cost, the material and labor. And then the red is what I went over. In material.
So you went over $413?
A little bit.
Or is it
No,
$3,400?
the total materials and labor originally was $594. After the actual was $4,791 for materials and labor. Materials were basically doubled just for that much of that area, okay? I'll let you study that a little bit. Then I went and took those numbers that I went over, projected out what the overall cost would have been for the whole project, which is about, it's on the end, 10,000. And a new estimate, what it's gonna cost per square foot for the other ones. Estimate on the wheelhouse portion, if I run into the same problems, or if whoever does it runs into the same problems, you're gonna be looking at about $2,000. The cabin portion is series. Now, the cabin portion is gonna tie in with your backsplash problem, because I speculate if you take the roof and rotted stuff out of the roof, from what I can see, without taking the ceiling down, the backsplash just might fall off. Because there's boards in the back there that I can see are rotted. I can poke a knife into where the screws are, my jackknife through the boards. So, bottom line is, it's pretty rotten, the whole works. So these would be like new estimates. Here's where I figured my percentages. It says cost based on cabin roof costs. What I spent on the cabin roof, what's projected out to the rest of the roofs. Because you're gonna have to have, if you're gonna go with the tin, you're gonna have to have a crown on it. You just can't have a big lumpy surface and
What are you looking at there now? You're still on,
oh, I've gone through here,
you're on the third page now?
yeah. You're gonna have to study these.
I thought it was gonna be on the new proposals, okay. I guess I'm, so this is from the original, one of these?
Okay, the first one, it takes some time, but, you know, I had old David work on this. You just got this in your face now, so it's gonna take some time. Second page.
So you estimate it's gonna take 3 weeks just to do the cabin portion roof?
One guy.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good.
So you're,
I mean, if I run into the same problems, I could cut that back a little bit. Looking from the inside, I can see some of the rot. I can't see all of the ceiling, but I can see that you're probably gonna have to replace, if there's 2 layers of sheeting, the top, it'd be easier just to rip off the top layer and put a new one on. But everywhere where there's a seam on the curved roof like that, you know, it's I used to have a word for it, but it escapes me. It's not it's kind of a beveled ceiling, okay? In order to get material to lay flat on it, everywhere where there's 2 pieces butted together, you're gonna get this. You know, unless you got something underneath it, you can screw it down to and get that curvature in your wood, which was part of the big problem on the cabin roof, because anything that got wet was swelled and was that thick, and anything that was good is that thick, so you had to tear it all out.
second page of the new proposal,
Okay, we can go to that.
it's showing that 1,300 to cover what you have into it, plus 17 to cover the rest of the,
Oh,
is that what that?
okay, I have, if you look at, due to temporary loss, a helper guy will not be able to finish any roofing this summer or fall.
So you're done,
I
regardless, you're
just
done
don't
this
have
year?
the time. I've invested the time that I possibly can into this year. So, I mean, if you wanna contract somebody else, or I'd be willing to help them fill them in or anything like that. You know, I have no problem with that. 1366.42 is what I'm over the 3,000. The 1,709 are some things I could pick away at that I think should be done, like the windows that are broken out. It's kind of an eyesore. And I beefed it up a little bit to where I put some plexiglass on the front part of it, in front of there's actually a paddle wheel. What do you call it? The steering wheel with a bunch of sticks coming out of it.
I guess I'm confused here. You know, it says, over costs on roofing, 1366.
Right.
And that's-
And the doors were in that too.
Yeah, but then over here you said over budget $3,400. You know, on this page it says over budget $3,400. And then here you say it's, you know, because what did we say?
Yeah,
$3,000?
this is just for the roof.
Yeah, 3 originally covered the doors and the roofs as
Right,
previously
right.
estimated.
Okay, so
Yeah,
this,
the difference is,
well, okay, it's just over cost on the roof.
right. So what I did is I built a basis on, if you look at the billing, I keep track of every hour, every bit of time and what I'm doing. And I kind of sorted that all out, figured out how much went to the doors, how much went to extra work, how much time it actually took to lay down the frost guard, and how much time to put the tin down and seal it up. And so that was my experience, okay? And I'm using that number and that experience and projecting it to the other unfinished portions.
I understand that. That would be under the new proposals.
Yeah. The new proposal is, or I wouldn't say it's proposal, but the new estimate, okay? Because I might not be doing it. Okay. What I think should be done, we missed the door in the front engine room. These are little jobs that I can maybe run down there a day or two and take care of if you want them done.
Is that,
There's the windows, the front engine room door. I put on a lot of new wood around the doors and trim down there.
what were we originally gonna have, or what did we decide you were gonna do? You're gonna do the roofs? I'm just trying to remember.
Right.
And the doors
Yep.
and the railing?
Yeah. There was an original proposal
So
with
so it was 3 things we were gonna do right away for $3,000. I mean, I'm just
The
trying to
roof,
get.
the roofs and the door, I don't know about the railing, I can't remember that
Yeah, I don't-
specifically. but-
Well, that, actually, when I started with the numbers 3,000, I was underneath that.
Yeah.
And it was such a small item.
Okay.
And a lot of
So-
complaints
Got
about
that.
it. It
Sure.
took me, I don't know, it was like $30
Sure.
to change it out with green tree. And it wasn't safe. It was really rotted. I pretty much pulled it off.
Sure.
So that was extra. And it's one item on the punch list.
I'm just trying to get my head around this. is all.
It's gonna take, if you haven't studied it, it's, I haven't changed this here, but the original, here's the original bid.
For
Our
everything.
proposal for
Right.
everything
Right.
was this amount.
Right.
And we picked out just 2 items,
Right.
and it was supposed to be like $2,600.
Yeah,
And
just to
they
get
figured this, so
started.
they just picked a number like $3,000.
Right. Right.
And I blew it. But it got done.
Sure. Oh, you don't know until you,
Well, like I said, it has to be fixed correctly. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't tear it apart and not fix it correctly, you know.
Right. And I'll guarantee it should have been done a long time
I
ago.
went down and looked at it just before your meeting, and what you did looks really nice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure you did a good job.
you did a good job.
I had mentioned on the email after the meeting, I'd love to take you down and show you around.
Well, right, yeah, I plan on going down.
Good. I didn't set it in the office. Okay, let's go over the new proposals. These are new.
Well, I guess if you're not going to be doing it,
Oh, no. These are new things that are new outside of the original one.
oh, they are, oh,
Yeah.
okay. You know, I don't know where I put my original one.
I've got a copy here, you can have it. Here's the
Thank
original.
you. That, you don't need this?
No, I just printed that out.
Okay.
It has been changed anything?
Yeah.
I will modify it, you know, for prosperity's sake,
Yeah.
if you want me to include the new costs,
No, that's fine. We just-
you know, and change, you know, what's already been done. Gonna help out, but the windows, some of the windows are broken out, we're gonna change the plexiglass, change the broken ones to plexiglass. There's gonna be enough, you buy one sheet of plexiglass, enough of them been cut out to change
Yeah.
some other ones. Something new I kinda wanted to do up there, I thought would be nice, would be, put plexiglass over the front, in front of the wheel, so you could open it up. Right now, it's just two boards screwed shut on each side. And I think I had mentioned it something in the original proposal, I don't know if it was line item or not, to do something with that, but
You might have, I'm not sure.
I'd be willing to do that, you know, something that I could do in you know, in a day, easy, get everything cut up and put in there. And then there was, I feel bad about this, the front engine room door is horrible. And if you come down, I'll show you that. It's, I didn't realize it was even there until kind of cleaned out the engine room a little bit. And I saw it's a door there and it's held shut with a little hook. And it's wide open all the way around. And if you want that repaired, I do want to do that. Touch-up painting. I know we're going back and forth who's doing the painting and whatever, but I threw it in there. It's got to be done, I would say at least primed before winter hits. The new stuff. You know, I did try. I know when I put together the painting proposal, which I can't even touch now, but I had mentioned in there using zip strip for a paint remover.
Yep.
But to get the trim boards to fit onto the wheelhouse properly, I grabbed my belt sander and laid it on there, tried to flatten it out, and that did a good job of powdering up that paint, taking it off.
Sure.
So that might work in that area, but if nobody's gonna do it, gotta get somebody to do it, I'll do it. There it is. I think the Lions have talked about staining the deck. Either they can, or if nobody can do it, need about a day to go over that. A lot of the boards are worked up, some of the metal straps are coming loose. I'll show you that tonight. I'd be willing to do that. And we have the summary of the new stuff, which is $1,709, and this would be over the period of the next 2 months. I could maybe work these in. I've got a big job coming up. I gotta get out at the hardware store.
No, we have summer help, it could be some staining.
Absolutely, if they,
Painting or something.
or if you need,
Possibly.
if they can come down and work with me, that's fine too, you know. Boy, I have to really compliment the park board on the improvements down there.
Yeah.
The new Frisbee golf course.
Well, they got that up.
Yes, and they're building another shelter, and it really looks clean and nice.
I didn't know they were building a shelter, another shelter.
Yeah, they are, or what did the guy call it? Gazebo? Yeah, yeah. And
The Lions Club has stuck a lot of time and labor into
absolutely,
that thing.
I was gonna mention.
I'm the new president of the Lions, that's why I'm here.
Sure.
Okay.
And we rebuilt the paddle wheel.
Mhm.
We painted it and scraped it last time it was painted. And, you know, we're just kind of, would like to walk away from that maintenance. I mean, where does it end
Yeah.
for us as a club?
Right.
when I first.
You gotta find somebody to take your place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I remember when we had a meeting, when we first met, and Tom Neary was down here in Joel, and I guess the question was brought up, where exactly we wanna go with this, you know?
Well, I think we need to take a look at it and see what
You know,
shape
I
it's
mean,
really in.
Yeah.
You can't quite abandon everything that's been
No.
put into it.
No, no.
And you can't, you know, I thought, well, maybe another grant or something, you can get you know, get it sound again.
Does the city have funding for this thing or not?
The last 3,000, I think, went to sales and use. Is this the request? Is that?
No,
No, I don't think we did.
no, we didn't.
Then it was
Not
general?
sales and use. It was, came out of the general.
It come out of general, oh, I thought it was, she said, food sales, okay.
There was nothing.
It was not at, yeah, it wasn't at that meeting where the
You weren't there.
3,000 was approved, so maybe I
Yeah,
shouldn't say
that's
that.
why you
This
requested
came
out
out
of
of general,
sales.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, you know, we weren't sure where we were sitting, so, you know, we figured, you know, before we stick a ton of money into it, you know, it should be a budget item.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're gonna have to do some planning.
the problem is we've got so many things that are maintenance nightmares. You know, we've got the museum, we've got
Yeah.
this, we've got that, and everything else.
For 2018, we can build in, you know, specifics into the budget. But it sure be nice to clear up what we do have in
But I think
in
the
works.
roof is primary.
Oh, right.
Yes,
needs
that's
to
why
be
we
fixed.
targeted that first,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, get
Or
rid of
else
the rotten
everything-
stuff and then,
Everything else is going to pot.
Well, I think we need
Yeah.
to look at it and kind of, well, I think I mean, if it needs to be done this year, it needs to be done this year.
well, I think you should get stain on the deck.
Right.
And your roof isn't gonna get any worse. You know, it could fall off, but it would have been, you know. I'll show you tonight if you
Yeah.
come down where
Right.
what I'm talking about, so.
Right. Okay.
I'm going to do some cleanup volunteer.
Have a nice one.
Some of it's my mess, I didn't get to it, the engine rooms. I think I'll clean that out just because I like to have that cleaned out. Yeah, but you had mentioned that your summer help is gonna clean out underneath it.
Yeah, that was decided. They could clear the bottom mud mess, the
Get
dirt
the mud mess
Yeah.
out, or get the fire department down there. and
Yeah,
blow
that
it
was
out,
an
you know.
idea.
Yeah, I
Figured
mean,
the city could.
but there's actually moss growing down there, so it's just kind of an eyesore too. I think
So.
the Lions have done tremendous amount of work. I think they should have recognition like this.
So, you didn't do any of the doors?
Yeah, all doors are done except
They
for
are,
the one.
except for the
that's-
one, okay. Okay.
Well, you're done being billed for it, let me put it that way.
Well, that's what I'm just wondering, and the doors went over estimate too, or not?
No. I was under.
I guess I just don't understand how, you know, we can be 1366 over on the roof, and then $3,413 over budget.
Okay.
You know, not,
Yeah.
unless I'm not seeing something here, you know?
Okay, this here, this number here, is based on,
That's based on the new estimates, or?
this is based on, the original estimate and what was actually spent on the roof,
Okay,
okay? The bill itself includes the doors.
I understand that, but you said
Yeah.
the doors were on, you know, you
Right,
didn't go
right,
over on the
right.
doors, and then you only went over on the railing by, you know, $100, right? according to this. And then,
I was $32 under estimate on the railing.
well, there's railing and railing, 33 and 65.
Oh, I screwed that up.
But like I said, I just.
Yeah, I got a screw up in there, I'll have to redo that.
But,
I'll get that to you.
but really, the over cost, you know, shouldn't be more than like $1,500 then.
Well, that's
And-
about all it is.
Well, but where do you get the 34 at? 34
That includes the original 3,000.
This includes the original 3,000?
Yeah. It's not, how should I put it?
Well, then.
That's if you completed all roofs.
That's more than what I had originally estimated it at. It's over that. It's,
You went over $3,400.
total. No,
You went over 1366.
yeah.
So then this,
For
that
the
is
total project.
confusing.
Huh?
This 3,400 is confusing. That's what you would be over, you think, if you did all the roofs and the doors?
I went over 1366. Okay, subtract $3,000 from that. Okay? Because we had budgeted, yeah, this is a total material and labor for the door. I guess the over budget heading is probably misleading. That's what it is.
Well, I know, what I'm saying is, you know, you said the doors were right on track with the doors.
Yep.
And the railing estimates is $100, and you went over 1,366 on the roof. That means your red mark should only be like $1,500, rather than
At most,
$3,400,
yeah.
right?
Right.
Am I thinking wrong?
Yeah,
here?
if you look at it that way, that's true. Because the original man hours was 50. And the original man hours was like 28. And then the original amount was for man hours, this was for the whole project, okay?
I understand.
Yeah. Was 1,220. And the actual was 2,983. And that was just for the cabin, not the whole project. Materials was estimated.
Oh, wait a minute, you said 2,000, what?
The labor on the bill,
Yeah?
of what I went over was, the original for the entire project would have been 1,220. I guess what I'm trying to show you here is how much I went beyond the estimate for the entire project alone, because that was the contract.
I understand what you're saying, is you went
Yeah.
over, but I don't see where the difference between, say, 1,500 and 3,400 comes from. Am I wrong on this?
No, I guess I don't see it either.
Well, I think the over budget area there is probably,
Well, I guess what I'm looking at is,
yeah, this is just for the, I guess what I'm trying to show you here is the difference between here and what was spent here. Okay? So there, $3,413 is what was the cost, that would have been the cost of doing that roof, which is let me look at this one.
yeah, but see, like here it says over costs on the roof is 1,366, you know, on this other.
And the new,
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think you're gonna have to go through this again or something, because these just don't add up.
I wish you had my laptop here.
Yeah, Yeah,
I did.
but you see where I'm coming from here,
Oh,
Bob, you know.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't
I
add
see
up.
where you're confused.
Yeah,
You're
we're like,
confused.
you know, like almost $2,000 difference there, $1,900.
Can you take some time to clarify it?
Yeah, I can clean that up.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'll clear it up and email it to you.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be fine, you know, we'll get it cleared up, so.
But, yeah, I was crunching numbers all day long. What was estimate, or actual, this railing shouldn't have been in here twice, so. I don't know why that was.
That shouldn't have been in there twice. They're two different estimates.
I know. See, this is the original, and this is the actual. That's what's wrong. This is original and that's actual. This is what I had bid it at. And this is what it came in under. Right here.
Right.
This is original from the original bid. This is what it came in under.
But see, whenever you think it's a red, it's an over.
I know.
Well, why don't you get that redone, Bob,
Okay.
and then, you know, get it to us, and then we'll look it over.
Yeah. You want me to come in next meeting?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep. And then we will, after the meeting, head down there. and-
Are you all three going? No.
I won't be able to, I'll have to do it a separate time. I
It'll be
guess.
me.
Okay.
You guys got keys to? Oh, yeah, you got locks too.
Okay.
That wasn't in the estimate.
All right. Well, okay, you get that, Bob, and then we'll take it up from there. Thank
What
you
I
very
should
much.
do
You
is, I gotta differentiate between the original estimate and actual costs.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
I'm out of this
Huh?
contract.
Yes.
Thank you.
We don't have to vote on that.
All right, you can make a motion.
Okay, I make a motion to, let Bob Frank out of his contract as requested
For the very.
for the Sudbury project.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion? Please?
Aye.
No?
Aye.
Yes. There you go. There you have it.
And from now on, I'll write a new one, it'll be time material.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know what? That's the best. Yeah, absolutely.
I usually do that.
Eric?
Thank you, Bob.
Yes, thanks, Buck.
Oh, well, thank you.
Good evening.
Okay.
I got, I sent out a sheet to update you guys, but I'll just cover what we had going on today in town. Obviously, the City Hall project is well underway. Estimate we're about 3/4 of the way done, maybe a little less than that. The big area we still gotta do is Northgate and Main Street. So they were working on finishing 4th Avenue when I left to come back in here, but that's been going pretty well. A few guys from the concrete crew were in town today. They started to do removals. They got the removals done by Morris Nelson's and by the Chase Drug store. So that's been removed. They quit because it started getting pretty hot that they didn't want to tear up any asphalt with their machine and haul away the concrete. So I expect them to be working the rest of this week on finishing that stuff up. So, but I did go around with Michael today. He's the guy that's running the crew of 2 that there is here, and showed him the areas that they need to work on for that change order 1, which was for that sidewalk project.
Right.
So, other updates, we're still waiting on Wagner to finish up their warranty items. I have placed calls to them last week. I didn't get a call to them today, but a lot of their warranty items remain to be the same from 2 weeks ago when I was last here. One addition was the fire hydrant on 7th Street and 2nd Avenue. When the guys were going around, they were turning on some of the hydrants, flushing some of them, I understand. That one was not draining out the weep hole, so That's one that we have added, is that right?
Yeah.
7th Street and 2nd Avenue?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's gonna be one that I'll have, Kyle's been the guy from Wagner that's been doing a lot of the warranty work, I'll have him address that. But otherwise, it's business as usual. The 2018 intake improvements project, that's moving along. We've started to get responses from the agencies that we've sent the letters for their feedback. And so far, there hasn't been any major issues. The bathymetric survey data we've started to analyze that. It's looking at that option 3, site 3 is not looking very good right now, the one up north.
Yeah.
Yep, it's not looking very good. It's looking like more like options 1 and 2.
Okay.
But I don't want to dwell or go much into that until I can get
Right.
you guys more
Right,
information.
exactly.
And there's other bulleted points in there that you guys can read, but we're looking to get a review to you guys on the technical memorandum for the site selection by mid-August. So the next commission meeting, I think, is the 14th. So that'll be my goal, is to get that to you guys for your review at that commission meeting or before it. So you can, if you have questions, you can ask. But that's going pretty well. And the other issue, or the other one I wanted to touch on, was the water tower inspections. We did get the contract you guys signed back to KLM, and I've been in touch with Mike Nowinski from KLM, and he said that they're scheduled for August 23rd and 24th.
You're not concerned about the warm weather on that? Who knows, right?
We're gonna play that by ear, and I told the guys at KLM, I said, you know, if we continue to be in drought conditions and we continue to run behind on the water plant, we'll have to reschedule to a later date.
And they were fine with that?
They're okay with that. So I said, I'll update them as I get updates. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention, and I don't know if the commission knows about it, but the recirculation pipe that goes up to the 250,000 gallon tank,
Yeah.
the big one, that there needs to be some repairs on that.
Yeah.
So we're looking at doing those, or Brian's looking at, he's got a guy lined up already that can
Well, it
do
just
that.
depends on when these guys, if they drain it down or when they're gonna do this.
And they will drain it dry to do the inspection and the cleaning and everything. So my understanding when I talked to Mike about it is when they do that, as soon as they're done with their stuff, that guy can go ahead and start working on his.
What's the problem, that pump or something,
No,
or what?
the
Well,
pipe. Right.
The pipe, they put in like galvanized pipe when they tapped it. And it's in the main line, it's like, well, there's no way, if that were to leak, there's no way to stop it.
Right.
I mean, unless,
If it was to leak out the small pipe, the
Right.
recirculation
Well, yeah.
pipe.
But some night when it all of a sudden were to break
You put
loose.
galvanized in there? I thought that was PVC or something. Really?
No, it rusted through the thing. To look at it, you never know, but all of a sudden we notice, oh, this is rotting, this pipe is absolutely
Okay.
rotting.
So is there an estimate on what that's gonna cost us?
No, Clint came up and looked at it. The only thing Clint
Okay.
told us was, when you guys take this tower down, he says, you're gonna wanna fix this. And he said he could be available to do something like that.
Okay.
Now, did you talk to Mike Chorney, right? Is that the Mike you were talking about?
I was talking about Mike Nowinski, he's the guy from KLM.
Oh.
But I can talk to Mike Chorney about it, because it was, or Mike Chorney. Corey Chorney or Mike Chorney?
Mike.
Mike?
For the calibration, because those two towers, Senex and that one, run only off the north.
Oh, the calibration,
Right. Now,
Yeah.
And all you're gonna use, you're gonna take that tower down, what's it gonna read off?
Ooh.
There's nothing there to read off of. Second problem that you have is the Senex tower. When that.
You're talking about the water plant takes readings off the meter on the north tower.
Off the north
Okay.
tower.
Okay, I will talk to Mike about that.
Then the second thing is, in the Senex pit, those valves that you adjust the flow, they were submerged and are no longer lit, and we don't know if they work or don't work. So if we know for sure that they were
yeah. Filled
never,
with water.
that float down to the bottom, we had a
Some
pipe.
pump didn't work?
No, what happened was the pipe broke, some pump caught up on the drain grating,
Yeah.
and the float came up, no.
Oh, Jesus.
Can you say that last part again now? After you talked about Mike? The second thing you started talking about?
Oh, okay.
I was writing,
In
sorry.
the Senex pit,
Senex pit? Okay.
yeah, there's a valve system and it can regulate your flow. We had to turn it down so we weren't getting big spikes between these two towers.
at the water plant. So when you turn it down and regulated that, now it's been underwater, it doesn't work. Well, there was no real worry at the time. Jasper says, hey, we're operating off this tower, this thing is already set. But now, when you take that out of service, you're gonna have to fill the Cenex tower a lot faster. You can't have it only 34 or 40% open. You're gonna have to have that thing wide open in order to fill that
Yeah,
tank.
because we're gonna be supplying everything off the
Right,
same
so
tower.
that thing's gotta be replaced.
Replaced or checked out.
Well, do you know, yeah,
It
is
might
it
work,
broken? It might work.
Yeah, we don't.
But I'll talk
we
to
don't-
Jasper and Mike about that,
Okay,
Mike Torney.
I told Jasper about it already, but he said, well, I'll talk.
When did you last talk to him about it?
Was it Friday or, no, probably, no, it was probably this morning until I talked.
Oh, really? So just like, okay.
But otherwise, they're gonna get here and we're not gonna have a way to regulate that tower.
We wanna do a motion to whatever it's gonna cost to repair those, so we need to go ahead and do it.
That won't be until August 20.
Well, they don't plan to be here until August 23rd, and everything is notional at this point because it just depends on,
Okay.
because right now,
I guess
the
we-
water plant's running at like 550 or 600 gallons per minute.
Right.
So, and we're kind of behind just because of how dry it's been. Everyone's using a lot more water, unless we up the capacity of the plant, which can be done, but
Right.
you
But it
know,
still won't do any good unless that valve is fixed.
Correct.
And that's the thing with this valving, that turnaround time to get it here is forever. So we had to have that one in the water plant brought up, but that one was
Okay.
bad.
So is that something you do before the
Oh, yeah.
23rd, 24th?
well, we
as
need,
far as
we
the
at least
work?
need to look into the functionality of that valve to make sure that, because maybe it's just turned down and it's, you know, maybe it just needs some maintenance and we don't need to replace the
Right.
valve, but I'll look into
That's
that,
possible, you know.
so.
I mean, we've had valves submerged for a long time, and they still work, so. Okay.
Thanks for that, Brian. I don't have anything else for you guys unless you have questions for me.
Do you have a question
May
for
I?
him? Do you have a question for him?
Yeah,
Okay.
the coffee rumor. A plan to go across the river to the west side to put the intake?
It's one of the options we're looking at.
Huh?
It's one of the options we're looking at.
It's an option.
Why?
It all depends on where the river channel is and where we can get the best access to the water.
Well, you got
For
8 feet of water where it is now?
Right now we do, Ray, because they're running the river so high because they're releasing a lot of water out of the dam. But the river's always going to be high during the months of May, June,
You
July.
can't lower the box?
We looked at that option and it's not a very good option to lower the box.
The thing is, Ray, that's where the main channel is over there.
I understand that, that's where the main channel is now. I won't
It's been
dispute-
there for like 50, 60 years.
Yeah, that could be, but my question is then, what is the extra cost to go across the river,
Well,
buy land, hook it up to a rural electrical system that's about as good as my electrical system?
Ray, that's what we're looking into.
We're looking at all those
We're looking
options
into
right
different
now.
options right now.
That'll be part of, I mentioned earlier, the site selection technical memorandum.
Well,
that
how
we'll
much
have.
money, well, do you have an idea of how much more that would cost?
We do have an idea.
No.
It would be more than running it from this side, from the east
Oh,
side.
yeah, I know that, were we talking $1 million? 2 million?
I can't quote you right now, Ray, but we will have all those numbers for the city to look at. That's why we're doing all the research behind it to make sure if it's a good option or not. And we'll have the cost estimates and everything.
That's gonna last, because this, in 2010, when we did that, would have been fine, it wasn't for the flood, that changed everything.
The flood changed
I
the river a lot.
understand that,
Yeah.
I understand that. If we'd have done this in the first place, when they redone the plant, Larry, and dug the well deeper and did all that, we wouldn't be here.
We did intake work then. We did intake work then.
Yeah, but you didn't lower the well so you could get
But the thing is, you can only lower it as far as your water depth.
And then you move that out and lower that, and you're all right. But, yeah, hindsight is great. I'm just concerned that, there's a lot of water on this side of the river too, you know.
And that's why we did a complete study to make sure that
Because there
we're
must
doing the
be at
best
least
option.
8 feet of water where the intake box is
Right
now. Yeah.
now, yes. But you get in a low
Okay,
flow.
that answers my question, the rumor's true. You're
We are
at-
looking at that for an option, yes.
Yep,
Yes.
okay.
So, but we will have more information for the city, and that at the next meeting, like I say, we'll have at least a draft of that
Right.
technical memorandum for you guys to look at, and if you have any questions on that, you can ask away, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eric, we appreciate the work you're doing. Ray, that's the due diligence to do all the vetting of that, to give the information back to the
Yeah, I
commission to make the
understand.
right choice. They're doing their job, they're doing it well.
Yeah, well, I'm done.
Okay.
No sense in crying over spilt milk.
Any questions for Eric? Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Portfolio.
Nothing other than the ferry, which we talked about here.
Okay,
That's it.
I have nothing.
nothing?
I got lots.
Laura, what do you got?
I got the fish cleaning station, we're gonna have to replace it.
Who owns that?
I don't know,
I think it's Game Fish.
because they're more than willing then to give us the grinder, they gave us the phase converter, and a few other things, but they wouldn't pay for the electrician to, run a line, install this, that, and the other thing. And I'm pretty sure that they work on their own up in Garrison, that they do the work. But when it comes to us, it seems like we get,
Have you talked with the Game Fish?
I talked to Bob Fradick again a couple times.
And what did he say?
He said, well, you can take that thing to Eggers and they'll put a new bearing in it and this and that. That's usually what everybody does. And I said, okay, I just wanna see if, he was gonna volunteer to do anything. He also gave us another option of, he says, I happen to have a 10 horsepower, which is what you really want instead of our 7.5, because then you can really grind some bones and some things.
Rocks that people throw in there.
Yeah, right. But he said this, I said, well, why don't we just take that 10 horse, put it on ours? And then he goes, and then with the grinder part, to do the new bearing. He contacted the guys, and of course, you even have to change the phase converter, you gotta change the control box and everything. They're not compatible, so but he's got one. Bob's got one down there, but I thought, well, now we're looking at how much, we're better off, I think, just getting the thing, put the bearings put in it, and then go from there. And then if we ever do change it out, fine, but.
And how long is that gonna be down,
I suppose it just depends on how long Eggers can get it.
Yeah, I know.
And then that's,
But the thing is, it's not like a sewage pump where we authorize them to do overtime because we need it extremely
Right.
fast,
right.
But all these people are gonna scream.
Yeah, yeah,
I heard fishing has slowed down, so
I hope so.
that's what I heard today.
And then the other thing is, we already have a pump, the lagoon pump down the North Dakota sewage. We lost the thermocouple on it. And smoked it, and Bob just got back to me today. They just finally got it open. And he looks at, well, new thermocouple and a couple other things. It's a $1,275 kit that he's gotta put in there.
Okay,
And I don't know what the turnaround will be. I think it's gonna take another week just to get that seal kit in. And they weren't able to they took over a week just to get the thing opened up. So.
well, that's an emergency thing, we have to have that fixed like really, really quick. So
Right.
that's-
So he's got that. And then the other thing we have is the aerator. The bearing in that went out. So we've got that out of the water, and we're gonna have to cut all the stuff away and take that down to Eggers.
Yeah,
So.
that's why Lagoon has been stenching so nicely in town.
I don't know.
How long has it been down?
Oh, it hasn't started this spring. We haven't had it this spring at all.
Oh my God, really?
No.
And we're just getting to it now?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that, for the longest time when those guys did it, Quam was it Quam? Yeah. When Quam was down there, it went that whole summer because they had drained everything
Right,
down.
right.
And so it never seemed to cause that much problem. But now there is a lot of scum starting to build up along the edge, so.
I think some potassium permanganate might help that.
Adam's been putting some in.
That's it, okay.
Yeah. So, that's all the breakdowns I have for now.
So you'll get that down there real quick, huh?
Yeah. Oh, then the other thing, I finally got contacted by Cortwood concerning their water leak. You know, they have that water leak in that one building, and we couldn't find the shut off, and of course.
Building C?
A, B, I don't know which one it is. It's the fourplex one with four.
Oh, that one?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was shut off at D, or A,
Uh-uh.
or whatever.
No.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, we found the one in the back. Now, we know where it's at, and she contacted me finally today. And then she says, well, I can call my plumbers. I said, yes, you can. We can work on it. I said, yes, you can. But I said, there's no guarantee that that valve will work.
Right.
I says, well, you're gonna talk to my lawyer type thing again?
Where's the shut off at? I mean, where's the leak? They don't have a shut off in the building, or is it before the shut off in the building?
It's before the shut off, right when it comes out of the floor, there's a leak there.
Okay.
So anyway, I said, there's no guarantee that that shut off's going to work. It's never been turned in 35 years. You know, we don't know if it's gonna work. And I said, then at that point, you're gonna have to dig it up. Well, and then I was met with the talk to corporate thing.
You know what? The curb stop belongs, it's
To
their
them.
responsibility.
Yeah, it's
so,
theirs.
Yeah.
So I just thought I better tell you about that one,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't have any other breakage.
No other good news?
No other good news.
Okay. So yeah, that, like the sewage pump and the aerator, I mean, yeah, I suppose we're gonna have to, what do we wanna do with the fish cleaning station? Do I suppose, do we wanna take it out of service and take it down there too?
Better. So in the past, the Game and Fish, I guess I don't know the history on it.
Last time the one went down, they just gave us a brand new one. They gave us the tabletop, the phase converter, they gave us everything.
And we just had to get it installed.
And we just had to install it.
And you have not talked to them?
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay.
Well, let me ask you this, if they got all that new stuff, that 10 horsepower and the phase converter and everything, will they just give that to us?
Oh, yeah. They, the stuff that's in there now, they gave it to us.
I know, but this new stuff,
Yeah, it
they
sounded
have
like,
everything we need.
yeah.
So all we'd have to do is get Weber to change that out.
Yep, that's from what it sounds like.
I think that would make more sense, right?
Yeah. But is the grinder included on that? You
Yeah.
talk about the 10 horse?
Everything's,
Oh, okay.
See, the grinder is really bad, and every time you wanna use it, you gotta reach into there and trip it, because it trips out all the time, and,
Oh, sure.
you know, years past, I dug rocks out of there, you know, people throw rocks and just bottles and everything in there, you know, they don't care, you know, that's the problem.
Maybe we should put a sign up that we throw a fisherman every week to clean it out.
There you go. It's a good
There's-
plan.
the other,
Because they're just, you know, I've stood up there and watched, you know, they'll throw anything in there, you know. If you got a big chunk of, a big fish head, you can help by squashing a little bit before you throw it
Well,
in.
you know what a lot of people do is, you know, they get their whole pile,
Yeah,
they turn it up, woof, and shove it in there, you know, and it's like, oh my God, you know. Shove them in one at a time, people, you know, good God.
So then, do you want to follow up with them?
I
and
can
see?
I'll talk to
Yeah.
Bob and see if we can't make sure that we,
Because, you know, and then, I mean, if that's all it takes, if they'll give it to us and all we have to do is hire Weber to
yeah.
wire it, then I think that'd probably be the way to go, don't you guys?
Yeah.
It'd be bigger, stronger motor, so.
Yeah.
And after they had installed this one last time, they looked at me and they said, well, this is what we had on hand, and we gave it to you. But we're installing 10 horsepower, and I go,
Yeah,
at the lake. Well, why? Because of all the catfish, they have a bigger boat.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and they know how, like you said, how they load the thing up.
Mhm.
So they went to 10 horse. So I'll ask him, I'll see
Okay.
what he
Yeah,
says.
let me know and then, whatever, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Bills? Everybody got a chance to review the bills?
Yeah.
I move we pay bills.
I'll second.
Reese?
Aye.
No?
Aye.
Yes. Meeting adjourned. Throw them down here, I'll sign them. Here are,
Right now.
here are,
I got it, it's on my mind.